Morning, Dave. How are you this morning?
Morning to be so great, and it's really great to be chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time this
Yeah,
morning.
I've wanted this for a while, but it's finally happening. It's finally happening. How are things on your side with the schools opening? Must be very busy.
Yeah, it's been a really busy start to the year. Lots of new things happening at Ubuntu, so we're juggling a lot of balls, spinning a lot of plates, but I think most things are staying afloat at the moment.
And I'm sure the recent developments with regards to CV were making a move overseas. Callum to me in the US being drafted in the MLS. Must be exciting times for you guys.
Yeah, it's huge encouragement. I think to have seen those two of those players come through our program, and just to see them flourishing now, yeah, it's amazing. I think both of them are going to do great things. Really good young men that we're really excited about.
Let us go back, Dave, into the founding of Ubuntu. How did it come about? Just give us a brief history of Ubuntu. What motivated, the founding of Ubuntu, which has become a major football institution in our ecosystem.
Yeah, so it started 15 years ago. There was an American and a Zimbabwean, both still very much involved. They came together with a very similar vision and really a heart to invest in young people. So initially to invest in a group of boys from the valley, just in the community where we are, and to really see these young men be raised up as role models and leaders I think in a backdrop of where often been a lack of sort of men taking responsibility, fathers really being leading their homes. And so Ubuntu was really birthed out of that, and football was the natural connection point. And then really things grew so just really organically from there. I think after a year realized that education was going to need to be a key component. So gradually all of these extra layers were added from there. And then I think that after about 4 years, the football was starting to really move forward. And so there's a few of us came across there's a setup called ASD Cape Town, so joined on the technical side. Then we launched our own school. It was a crazy year. We also had an NFD club that year, so I think that was 9 years ago. We launched our own school, also opened up our residence. So things, have just been gradually growing over the years and we're always evolving and growing, and that continues to today.
And, when you start such an organization, like you've explained, the reasons behind it, but what are some of the founding principles that at the start you said, whatever we do, this will be the foundation, this is what we build on, this is what will guide us and be our framework going forward?
Yeah, I think it's been really good actually, and even in the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of leadership investment and just reaffirming that. And the reason we exist is we're holistically developing elite footballers to become citizens of significance. That's why we exist. That's why we do what we do. We're holistically investing in these boys and now girls. So not just the football, not just the academics. There's leadership. There's character formation programs that we're deeply investing in, and we are working with the elite footballers. We're quite clear on that, and our vision is to really see these young men and women become citizens of significance who really impact families, community, and society. And we're starting to see the fruit of that. We're certainly not at a place where we feel we've finished the model in it. I think we're always wanting to kind of refine and grow it. But yeah, the heart, that's why we do it. That's what drives us. And I think being in the football space where there can be volatility and yeah, I think that it's something that just keeps on grounding us. So whether you're a coach, whether you're the chef, whether you're the driver, a teacher, we've got that unified vision.
And as you mentioned, some, your drivers, chefs, people working within Ubuntu. What has been the impact of Ubuntu in the community where you're based?
Yeah, so our starting places in the valley, so it was Ocean View, Massapumalele, Fishhook. I mean, out of that initial, very first group, it's been incredible to see the pathways that many of these kids have gone on from. So Jesse Don came out of that group, from Fishhook, who's obviously gone on to have a career in the PSL. We're seeing teachers come out of that group. So there was a local boy from Ocean View, wasn't really into education at the time, but got through school, and then incredibly, a few years later, last year he taught the director's son at a local school. Real passion for just investing in young people. We've got one of our first graduates was recruited by BlackRock Investments, the largest assets firm in the world. So after completing Ivy League degree in the States, he's flying and obviously making quite a bit of money with that. So I think that the broad spectrum of like the impacts is so broad that we love sharing those stories.
That is very great to hear. I look at your mission, and I quote, it says, holistically developing elite footballers towards becoming citizens of significance, close quote. So what structures have you put in place to be able to support and fulfill this mission? Because, it's not only about football, it's more than just football. And therefore, football on its own, it requires a huge, sort of effort to be able to develop elite player like you've done. But when you add other aspects, it becomes sort of a huge operation. So in terms of the structures, you can take us through one by one. What structures do you have in place to be able to support this mission?
Yeah, so obviously I'll start with the football side of things. We've got quite a large operation where we start with pre-academy programs with 6-7-year-old boys and girls in different places in the city, and then our minis, so pre-academy programs, under 10, under 11, 12 programs. Then at under 13 to under 18, we have our main academy setup, and then we also have an ABC Mosepe team as well. And then we have our own Umalusi accredited independent school. So that has around about 80 students from grade 7 all the way through to matric. We have our own residence with around about 40 boys in there. And then we've got one or two of the programs. So we launched a program last year called Ubuntu Empower, which is investing in 80 children in Kailicha, a similar but a smaller sort of approach with education, life skills, football, and a feeding program. And then just recently, we've really added some areas that we feel are going to help us bridge that gap between what we can do here and what maybe a European setup would do. So we've added in quite a significant nutritional component. So every player now receives 2 cooked meals and 2 snacks every day as part of their day, and it's been designed by the Sports Science Institute, so it's very much obviously high in nutrition, and then obviously the residents, the full nutrition throughout the day. And then that one of the reasons we did that was we've massively increased our strength and conditioning program. So really, if we're going to be investing in strength and conditioning, we need the right fuel going into those bodies. So those are the kind of key pillars. I think that's within that is then something that is almost like the glue is our character and formation studies. So we invest quite a lot of time and resources in really understanding who each of these young men and women are and who they're becoming. So I think we realised, especially during lockdown, that yes, we can develop great academics, we can develop great footballers, but it's really like it's about who they're becoming. So that's been an area that's we've just had some really great investment in recent years.
Let us talk about the mentorship side, and I've seen, through your social media platforms, the boys will be out, whether it's a cleaning campaign, at times we're painting somewhere, visiting, communities. There'll be class engagements in terms of mentorship, all those programs. Who are some of the organizations that you are partnering with, and what is the main objective behind those programs which are outside academics and football?
Yeah, so I mean, we like to be connected within our local community. So one example would be there's a preschool that we go out to and do some basically our academy players lead. I can't call them coaching sessions. It's a bit of babysitting, but basically some fun football with those kids, and that's about them. It's linked in with our character program of them experiencing giving back, them experiencing leadership, taking initiative, public speaking. So there's so many of those skills that come through that by being in a classroom, there's a limitation of what you can do with that. And then we've really seen the need for just exposure to different industry. I think that we've found that many of the players come in with maybe just not as a fuller understanding of all the different jobs, all the different industries that exist. And so, for example, there were at the end of last year, they were in Spur head office learning about the intricacies of how a business runs. So yeah, it's just trying to connect them with different experiences because I mean, it's something I'm sure we'll get onto, but ultimately not all of them are going to be professional footballers, and even those that do, they will need another career later on as well.
That is very good to hear, and from some of the boys that I've met from Ubuntu, what you're talking about, that grounding, that humility, you can see from those engagements. Moving to the academics, which grades do you have? And in terms of, there's always talk about the number of learners in a class and how the lower the number helps in terms of educators being able to be attentive to kids. How is the structure in terms of of the academy school, and in terms of metric result just came out recently? How are you faring in that aspect?
Yeah, so we have about 15 pupils in a class, so it's around about 10 boys and 5 girls. Actually, the oldest girls group is up to grade 10, so we go all the way from grade 7 through to grade 12. And so yeah, I mean, the school has really been thriving in recent years. So our results up until this year have been, we've had 5 years of 100% matric pass rate. We are optimistic with one rewrite we'll get to a 6th year this year. And so last year we had 89% bachelor pass rate, and again with one rewrite that is going to come, then we're hoping that we'll actually match that one again. So we're really seeing kids come in, sometimes not necessarily really strong academically, but Yeah, many are coming out with above and beyond actually what we expected. We had one boy who he came in from KZN 3 years ago, and I think throughout his whole journey, everything was, yeah, I think from the beginning through till June last year, everything was pointing towards, we really can't see how this boy is going to pass matric. And then to our he got a bachelor pass. We were stunned. But yeah, I think it just highlighted of, yeah, the amazing work that the teachers are doing, but also like the brotherhood of the way that the boys and girls are really come together and push each other, like especially in the residence. There's a real culture of study there.
And we obviously always preach the importance of education, because we all know not all of them will make it, as much as we want all of them to make it, but it really doesn't happen. And are you able during the process to be able to see that, okay, these ones are likely not going to make it in football, therefore maybe let's put more effort on academics so that they can find a career, whether they go to universities and be able to contribute to society in different ways?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when they come in at the beginning, because we generally stick with, after the first trial year, we'll then stick with them throughout matric. And I think the initial years is, I mean, how can you predict if a 13, 14-year-old is going to be the one that makes it and pushes? Obviously, you get a bit of an indication, but I think we find by 15, 16, we can start to have a bit better understanding of what are the likely pathways. So for some of them, that will be, we're talking about European pathways, and for some it might be European pathways and maybe a university pathway, so to be considering both. For some we might be saying, okay, PSL is what we'd be looking at. So we're always in conversation with the players and with their families, to give sometimes quite a realistic, and at times that's not always wanted, the assessment, but it does help prepare the boys, especially if they're for various study. So we've sent 26 boys to America over the years for scholarships, and but something we learned along the way is that you have to have certain percentages in certain subjects, and so and it's the same in South Africa. If they're wanting to go to a certain university, get a certain scholarship or bursary, then they're going to need X, Y, Z. So we then are able to spend, especially from grade 10 onwards, really sort of specifically preparing them for that trajectory that means that they don't get to matric and then realize, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, or there's no club interested in signing me, or I don't know what job am I going to do. I think that's something that maybe from our earlier years, that some of our learnings was, okay, we can't get to a place where an 18-year-old is really just unsure what to do. So yeah, I think that's been some of our sort of learnings and experience along the way.
Now let's get into football, my favorite subject.
You've been patient.
Tell us about
so far.
The number of teams that you have. You mentioned, you also got pre-academy. You start to preparing them from that age. But the numbers of the players you have, the teams you have, the divisions that they participate in.
Okay, so yeah, registered players with us, our mini section under 10, under 11 and under 12, which includes some under 9s. So it's around about 55 players. And then we have under 12, 14, 16s and 18s. But the 18s is kind of 18/ABC Mosepe team. So each of those squads will have, it's around 10 players on each age group. So for example, we've just brought in 9 2013s, and so they form part of that under 14 squad. And so what that then allows us then is quite often a lot of those under 14s will play up into the under 16 age group, and then the under 13s will then get some more game time through that. So it just gives us that opportunity to really push players up.
So your under 18s play the ABC Motsepe League?
So we have quite a lot of 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that we traditionally play in the ABC, and then we top that up with, we usually get probably about 8, 9, 10 older players that can come in and provide some experience. We often go for like character that is going to really inspire and encourage those younger players with the right things on and off the field. But yeah, we had the Bay Hill squad that won last year's Bay Hill. Quite a lot of them had already got ABC Motsepe experience. So I think we're just seeing that it's such a fierce, aggressive, physical league, that the growth that those players that go through that that we see is quite significant. Which then, so when they then go on European placements and trials, they're a little bit more ready for the physical side of things.
That is impressive, because that league is something else. But is it correct to conclude that the intention is not to win the league and get promotion, but to develop these players, to give them a platform, a very competitive platform for their development?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we when Maurice Kosman was in 3 years ago, we almost accidentally won the league without sort of pushing. I think it was the last day of the season we were still in pushing, but no, I mean, in terms of the budget that we will throw at the league and the ages that we put in, no, it's about experience, and yeah, I mean, especially with Cape Town at the moment, just with the lack of pro clubs in the Western or in Cape Town and surrounding areas, it means that the level of our ABC here is really pretty high. There's some clubs really throwing some like big budgets at it. So, it's amazing for, if you've got 15, 16-year-olds playing against some of the players that they've looked at and watched on TV. That's what an amazing opportunity.
Great stuff. Like you mentioned, your development, and that doesn't have a senior team in the professional ranks. So it means what is likely going to happen is that those players will move on to other clubs after they conclude matric or at the end of the program. So what you'll often find is that with academies that have teams in the PSL is that they have this thing of a philosophy that we start from a young age. This is how the senior team plays, and therefore this must be reflected in the academy as well. So what is your philosophy and methodology as an academy where your players are likely to go to different clubs where there's different philosophies and different way of playing? So in your development, how do you ensure that they are able to adapt in whatever club or environment they find themselves in?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think it's an area that it does need a lot of thought. And yeah, I mean, from the youngest ages, we're quite high ball possession. That ball will keep on the ground more often than not. So we do play quite progressively through the field. But we don't have a fixed formation that every age group must use. And we are, I think in recent years, we've seen the need to put players into systems and structures and at times styles of play that are adaptable. So basically, when they leave us, they're not stuck in a system that they only know. For example, they played as a 6 in a 4-1-2-3, and that's all they've ever known. I think we really see that they've got to be able to adapt. They've got to be able to play in different formations, different structures, and even this year in our coach meetings, we've been discussing about just within the need in training to be at times them experiencing playing in more direct systems of and especially defending against more direct play. So yeah, I think it's something that we've sort of seen over the year. We can't be too rigid on our style of play throughout all of the age groups, all of the time. We rather give them that time and experience of different something different.
You mentioned possession, and I know you've got a program, 1,000 touches program. Please tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's more kind of right at the younger ages. Really, the 1,000 touches come from trying to get those younger kids at least 1,000 touches on the ball. So a lot of that's ball mastery, 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s. So yeah, a system that really sort of is very player central, yeah, I think at those younger ages we want to see them express themselves. So we're actually not pushing them to excessively possess. If they're a dribbler, especially at those younger ages, like, you go and dribble, you go and do your thing, you go and express yourself, So I think that we really prefer to kind of, like, we speak a lot about super strengths. We prefer to look at the players and individuals, see what they've got, see what is their super strength, see what is the thing that's ultimately going to get them signed one day, because it's usually not from being an all-round good player. It's usually just being exceptional at one or two things. So we'll help grow those things, whilst obviously working on some of the weaknesses that might need filling in as well.
So in your program, like you've mentioned, you've got the pre-academies, you've got your under-10s and under-11. If you can take us through the stages, because there's often a lot of talk about ball mastery, learning to train, training to compete, and there's also a debate about when do you start to introduce tactics, at what age level and so forth. But for Ubuntu, what does the process look like? What do you do at pre-academy? What do you do when they are 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it links into your recruitment model. So our recruitment, we are looking for intelligent players. They need to understand the game, even from the younger ages, their instincts. So we're often recruiting like street kids that have played street football. So really comfortable on the ball, just an intuition about spacing. And then, yeah, as I say, like I said before, like we then will try and build a game around them. But yeah, at the younger ages, we've got incredible coaches, Coach Yannick, and now recently Coach Mausbooth coming, was previously at Cape Town Spurs. They'll use 1,000 touches. They'll do 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, and then we will open up the field as well. So usually once a week in their training, then they get to learn then the structures of a bigger field. I mean it's debated at what ages you should do that. I think we find it's helpful for them to touch upon that a little bit, but really, like, the 3v3s, 4v4s is most ideal at those younger ages. And then when by the time they come into the under 14, so the under 13, under 14, now they're obviously getting exposed to 11v11. Spend initially the first 6 months will be much more ball on the ground, so progressing through the thirds, continue with the 1v1s, 2v2s. We integrate, so like our finishing and defending, and we try and integrate everything in the games model. So we occasionally isolate, but generally we keep things within the context of how football looks. So we try not to do too many strange things that don't look like an 11v11 game. And then, yeah, by the time we call it, when they get into the under 15, under 16 group, we call it our senior phase. And so now we're starting to ask for them to know how to get results, know how to win. So competitions, tournaments, Bay Hills, Engines, those sort of things, really just naturally bring out that. And so. And now we're adding in gym, we're adding in, so before that would be more body weight exercise in the gym, but now it's, especially with the nutrition, there's the physical component is obviously coming through. And then that takes them through into under 18s, ABC, Mosepe, where, yeah, I mean, they're then treated as senior players. And yeah, we've got Mario Boyson doing a superb job with our under 18s and ABC, and yeah, obviously playing in the ABC, they've got to learn to be street smart. Like I think we've seen that often academy football can be quite idealistic, and sometimes the way you build up, sometimes the way your goalkeepers are involved in build-ups, and but the reality is that any minor errors when you're going into ABC are getting punished, like goalkeepers especially. Little mistakes, there's just no space for it. So it's the game environment provides a real key learning curve for them.
And earlier on you mentioned the introduction of nutritionist, strength and conditioning. What was the thinking behind that? It's about time you introduced that, and at what age groups have you introduced it, or does it apply to all age groups? Because it's something that you hardly find within the academy environment, to have such specialized roles early on in their careers.
Yeah, so we have there's a brilliant gym setup that's just next door to our school. It's fantastic environment for the players to go in. So they go in Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's all of our players, boys and girls, from under 13 all the way through to ABC. And from under 13 to under 15, they are a body weight emphasis, so they won't be on the weights. So that's everything like SAQ, so speed, agility, quickness, through to core, and then a lot of body weight exercises. It's very functional and related to football. We've just brought in head of performance. Keegan Hunt has come in, and she's now this has become her baby. Like really making sure that we're putting in a really functional strength and conditioning program. So yes, it might add a little bit of bulk to them, but it's got to be functional. The modern game just requires such a high demand. Like the physical athlete, the demands at the highest game it just needs to be got right. And so I think some of our learnings and experiences of sending boys to Europe on assessments is that physical edge, like the physical size is not necessarily the fight, but it's sometimes actually the physical weight and size. Was some of the feedback that they were tended to be below their European counterparts. So that's part of that as well, just helping them get ready for those more physical battles.
And in terms of the league, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, you participate in the two Oceans LFA. How competitive is that league? Because us in Gauteng, we believe that the GDL is the elite youth league, is the best in the country. How competitive is that? Because I'll make an example. When a player like now the name slips the name slips my mind. When so under 20 midfielder.
Lazola.
Yes. I don't know how I forgot Lazola's name. Yes, when Lazola came through at SuperSport, you couldn't tell that there's a difference in terms of the level. I think that same year that he came here, he was all selected for the Gauteng teams for the school's winter games, because that's how good he was. So how competitive is that league? And I know you have interest in other leagues, what is happening in the country as part of your recruitment processes. But in terms of comparison, how good is that league?
Yeah, I mean, the league, it's always been a small number of clubs. We actually only started with 4 initially, because one of the big drives of the league is to play strength versus strength. And so the league runs under, obviously, SAFA structures under the Two Oceans LFA. And it's now grown to 8 clubs and academies, and yeah, it's really been growing well. I think there's a couple of things that we do well. We work together really well as clubs. So I think we recognise that we've got a similar mandate and similar drive to be making sure Saturdays, on the weekends, we're playing as tougher games as possible, and and we need each other for that. And then, yeah, I think we've just seen that we'll fight it out scouting, we'll fight it out on a Saturday, but we need to get on well as clubs. And the level's good. I think that we obviously keep an eye, and we watch the GDL, and I think facilities wise, we're not as consistent as the GDL. Having like the likes of Stellenbosch and Cape Town City in the league mean that obviously their facilities add quite a lot of quality. But yeah, I think that the competition, there's not very often big scorelines racked up, and this is Cape Town, and there's one thing that Cape Town players know is how to fight, and the aggressive side of things mean that teams, there's no one getting rolled over in the league. So I think it's a league we want to be growing and getting better, and but it's certainly served a good purpose.
In terms of your recruitment, I know last year you hosted trials here in Gauteng. What is your recruitment philosophy? What do you look for? And what has necessitated for you guys to now step out of Western Cape and see what other provinces have to offer?
Yeah, I mean, I think even beyond even South African borders, with Menashe Garanga, who's been playing in the Champions League in the last couple of years, has shown us that we can bring players from outside of Cape Town and develop them. So because we've got a residence, and because we've got the structures in place, that we're increasingly open to finding, especially on the boys' side. The girls, we're still just Cape Town, but on the boys' side, that finding boys that we can be a great fit for them, and they can be a great fit for us. And so, again, I mean, coming back to the super strengths, we will often look at what makes them special. Do they have the right character, right personality that we believe is going to flourish in our setup, that's going to flourish and ultimately be able to get the most out of their talent. Academically, we'll look quite closely at the academics. And then, on the field, it's if we're recruiting, occasionally we will add players in at older ages. There's not lots. Then that might be positional based. But yeah, I think like for what we've learned over the years is we need like tactically players that really understand the game, have got a picture for the field. So before they receive the ball, that they know what's happening. Technically, really by the age of 13, 14, they should be pretty astute. Technically, ideally both feet. We're looking at, by the end of the under 14, we want as many of those players to be two-footed. Yeah, and then sometimes we can find a bit of the X factor. Could be in something different. So, for example, to show Luke Henriks, who played in the Under 17 World Cup, who's in our Under 18 and ABC Motsepe. We brought him in because we just thought he had outstanding leadership at the skills. His football was still developing, but we just felt that he was going to lead himself, he was going to lead others in an incredible way, and so that's something we recognized at age 11. And it's actually really proven to be true. And even to see his leadership in that under 17 national team. So it's not always linear of exactly, there's not a cookie cutter approach to who we look for. I think we've had a couple of really tall Zimbabwean strikers, centre backs come in. We see, okay, Menashe has certainly shown us he was exceptionally tall, big physique, has shown that that can potentially be an attraction in some of those positions. So yeah, there's a lot of different aspects that we look at, and then we've got some metrics that assessments that we'll then put them through once they come on trial with us.
Do you find the differences between players from Gauteng, KZN, Zimbabwe, since you've mentioned it, and Cape Town? What are some of the differences you find in these players, and how do they complement each other when they're in a team?
Yeah, I would say, I've mentioned before, like within Cape Town, you're not going to struggle to find players who are aggressive and passionate and are willing to fight. So the physical edge often be quite strong here. I think probably something that's a little bit different in Gauteng, and it's maybe interlinked with the fields, but the build-up play. The players are very used to build-up play in Gauteng. I'd say that they're not as used to high pressing. So high pressing is 90% of the time. Well, actually, some teams play a low block against us, but quite often football in Cape Town is just aggressive high pressing. So I think that's been a shock sometimes to some of the Gauteng players that have come through. Some that have been playing in GDL. And then I think if we're looking at players from outside of South Africa, sometimes there's a different physical edge that we'll see. Whether Botswana and whether it be Zimbabwe and Zambian, it's just a different physical makeup of the player.
Yeah. So there's a lot happening. There's the mentorship, there's school, there's football. Take me through a typical day for an under 15 player at Ubuntu, from the time they wake up to the time to go to bed. What do they do? What are they likely to be doing within all these aspects that we've spoken about?
Okay, so if I take you through, about half our boys in the residence, so they would start the day, I think it'd be around 5:30, 6 o'clock, with some chores, sweeping the room, making sure the beds are made, and then they would have devotions. Up until this year, they would then go into their breakfast, but now we've shifted the breakfast to the school. So then they would move across. They'd take a Ubuntu van to the school just down the road. and then they would go in from 7:40 into their classrooms, then 8 o'clock into their first lesson. So this morning their first lesson was character curriculum, so I led that with the grade 7s and 8s. We were looking at initiative, but then it would go through on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. That would be normally a training day, so we would then rotate on those days. There'd be one group, so let's say the under 14s would go across, drive down to the field in Ocean View, so there's an AstroTurf field there that we use. They would train while the rest of the school is still in school, and then that group would finish, and so that cycle would continue till 1:30. Then on a Tuesday and Thursday, they would finish school 3:30 and then go into either a study period for an hour or straight into strength and conditioning. Then they would arrive back, so half the group would go back on transport, and the other half to where their homes, the other half back to the residence, where now they get to relax and be young people that do what young people do, and that we've got a beautiful Ubuntu house, amazing house parents that just let the kids flourish, and so then obviously they'll have the evening meal and chores and duties with that, and then there might be a study period again that evening, or there may be like Tertius would have like a Milo night where they have some connection with a certain age group, and then lights out by 9:30, or depending on the different age groups, and then in theory sleep. But I think that we've seen that the need to have the clear rhythms. Also cell phone hand in by 9 o'clock, which just makes sure that they get a good night's rest and are not on WhatsApp or YouTube all night.
So it's not a typical school where you start, say, school at 8 and finish at 2:30, then go to the training. Training does happen during the day while others are school, others are training.
Yeah, and it's one of the advantages of having our own school, that we obviously get to design our own curriculum and work, and we were able to literally design a timetable from a blank piece of paper, and also with the facility that we use, which is brilliant. It's quiet, is great AstroTurf that's available throughout that time. So there's no one else coming on there, and so that privacy is obviously important.
All these things you mentioned, Dave, you are running a huge operation, which obviously requires a lot of funding. So financially, how do you support these operations that continue to expand year after year?
Yeah, so we are a non-profit organization. So we've traditionally had like South African corporates really get on board. So we've been encouraged with whether it be Alan Gray or the Clicks Foundation, just corporates that really love what we do, and so I think that our funding partners have sort of got quite hands-on with us, which has been great. And then we've diversified our funding a little bit more overseas as well. But it's it is a constant work that we need to be always pushing to really, like, we want to be growing. We want to be we're never happy to stand still, and so that's something that we're always looking to raise funds.
And we've spoken about all these aspects: mentorship, academics, football, and we know that you start from grade 7 to 12, so you are likely to have the boys and the girls now for a period of 6 years. What is the desired outcome, that desired path? We know it's not going to always happen, but ideally, what do you want to see when the boys get to the end of the program?
Yeah, I mean, so the end of the program would be potentially a matric, or one or two will stay for another year or so in the ABC. But we're really all about pathways, and it's coming back to seeing families, communities, and society healthy and flourishing due to the influence of Ubuntu's graduates. And for each of those individuals, it's different. Our journey doesn't stop with them. I think that this is a really key point to put that our journey, those that are finishing the journey with us, continue with us. Some of these graduates are now 25, 26, and we're still in regular touch with them. We're still trying to find sometimes opportunities and openings. We're still connecting them with pro clubs in Europe. We're still making those investments. So, for us, it's about finding what is the right pathway, and that might be study in South Africa, a bursary. That might be study in America. That might be a European club. That might be a PSL. Might be DDC. But we really want to get them to 18, and then they have choices, they have decision, that they can then choose. So that's really our desire, to get them there, and then we can kind of see them flourish in whichever environment is right for them.
You mentioned something I wanted to touch on, that even after matric, when the boys are 25, 26, you're still in touch with them. I think I noted over the festive season, Casey visited one of the boys. I also think he went to Lazola Zumgiti. So those connections, how important are they, Ubuntu? Because we know Lazola left Ubuntu a few years ago, but you're still in touch. You still, keep in touch with him and his family.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're investing in the kids that beyond the football, then it goes to deeper levels. I think like the passion of that's a great example with Casey. He actually went around to quite a lot of homes in the Eastern Cape visiting many of the kids and some of the staff, and understanding where they came from. So it's a long-term journey, maybe it's slightly different to the way the football industry has typically worked. Of when a player leaves you, then you kind of they're done with you. I guess so. We don't like to
practice Ubuntu.
maybe that is Ubuntu in play. I mean, our mission is about that longer term impact, and I think we're realistic that, look, between the ages of 18 and 21, 22, it's often tough, especially those that are trying to push through in the pro game. It's messy. It's not as straightforward and linear as the boys would hope, as we would hope. So that needs a lot of mentorship. It needs a lot of care around that phase. It's just typically it's a really difficult phase, I think that we've seen that the more we can come around that age, that can really help boys, especially if they're about to make like poor decisions, and like, can we be in a place where we can help advise the boy, help advise the family in the right way?
Because you're an academy, you produce players, but okay, in your case, not just players, but human beings that are able to contribute to society in different ways. But on the football aspect, there's a lot of then transfers that happen. There are boys who don't, start from grade 7 and leave at 12. Some leave in between because some clubs come calling for them. What is your policy and what guides Ubuntu around those matters, dealing with clubs and now, with agents, coming into play. What is your policy and guiding principles in dealing with agents, dealing with clubs and transfer of players?
Yeah, I think I'd point to three things. I think just to go back to my previous point, is for us, it's all about pathways. So at 18, have the best pathways, have as many pathways available. And so, sometimes a boy might desire a certain club, but let's say they're a left back there. They might move to that club and be behind 5 or 6 left backs that are in their way. So whether that's in Europe, whether that's in the PSL, there's got to be a realistic way through. If their desire is to be playing and starting matches or to be playing in matches, then let's assess what is happening at that club. I think that's where we're seeing the advantage of where the boys are at when they're with us at 18, that we can then help place them. Obviously, we're connected in with pretty much all of the PSL clubs, and so we can then, if a boy's got a specific desire for a club, or we can, or there's a specific opening at a club, then we can try and match those things. And as I say, especially as we look towards Europe, for example, we've got. Besides Sevilla, that's obviously just signed in Belgium. We've got 3 boys going over to Europe next month. One of those boys is already signing in Croatia. 2 others have got trials there. So we're just able to try and match those things. And I think the second point I'd go to is once players come into our academy, they're all on scholarship agreements. So that's a legally binding contract. So that's something that the families are aware of. That so any that would leave early would then have to then repay the academic portion of that. And then. I think that we obviously want to be working within the industry well, and we try and build as good relationships as we can.
We've seen some of your boys going, the USA college football. Okay, let me not call it football because it's US. They call it soccer. The soccer pathway, many of them playing in the NCAA and all those other college competitions. How were you able to establish that, and how has it, served you as a club?
Yeah, as I say, I think we're at 26 boys. We've just had another one go in the last couple of weeks. It's been an incredible opportunity for those boys that have gone over, and many have done really well. Some have gone in at high school, some have gone in at junior college, and some have gone in straight at university. And some have picked up girlfriends along the way, and so we're trying to bring them back to South Africa. And then it has created some really interesting pathways. With Caleb Tommy last month was drafted, so he was at North Carolina State University and got drafted by the Houston Dynamo. So that was a first, and it was quite an interesting one of seeing that it is possible for a high-level player like Caleb, that always had high potential, but was interested in pursuing the academic and scholarship side, that he then sort of can come back in. Is 2004, so it'd be 22. As a 22-year-old, his pro football aspirations then can kick in again at that age.
And we've also seen recently some of your boys moving into GDL teams, and you've also mentioned that obviously because of the scholarship agreement, there's a certain portion that must be paid for their academics, and on the other side, there's obviously guiding principles from FIFA with regards to movement of under 18 players and things around training compensation and all that. How are you dealing with those aspects in ensuring that you allow the boys to move on, but also as an academy that has put in such a huge investment, you are able to get some of that back to put in on other players who are coming up?
Yeah, I think it is a challenging area. Last year we would have spent 9 million rand on our operation, and then I think within the last 5 years we've probably got less than 1 million rand, or we have got less than 1 million rand in terms of transfer revenue. So it doesn't quite work out at the moment. We just we're continuing to do the right things on our side, and we really trust that the clubs and agents will do the right things too. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way, but that's something that we don't give up on what we're doing because the financial mechanism doesn't quite work at the moment. But it can be a challenge, but we continue to believe in what we do, and as I say, especially seeing that getting players through to matric, we've just got so many stories of the ones that pushed through to the end, of how that really did help them get those next opportunities.
Recently, we've seen Cape Town Spurs take a decision that to adopt the pay-to-play model for elite development because of some of the difficulties, with being able to get something back to plant back into the academy. From your own experience, how do you think, in terms of the laws that exist, how can they be, amended or improved to be able, so that the academies are able to get something back, so that they can continue to sustain themselves, given the amount of investment they put in these players?
Yeah, I think that obviously you probably pick up I'm British, so I've got a bit more of an understanding of the English system. I think that the training compensation mechanisms, for example, in England, are much more realistic. So if a player does leave, say for example signs to Chelsea, they seem to snap up a lot of the players. There can be quite sizable compensation fees even at those younger ages. But yeah, I think one of the challenges is, so for a setup like ourselves, the current SAFA training compensation mechanism is so minuscule, so tiny compared to actually what we put in. So if we were to put in claims on that, it is so tiny compared to what we invest. I think the good thing is now with the FIFA transfer system is that players that do then go on to make international moves and do sign for sizable money, then there's always small percentages then that are always attached to the club that helps develop them. So that's I think as we go along, that's going to become more significant as well.
Before we close, Dave, let us talk about some of the players that have come out of Ubuntu, because so that when we say to people that Ubuntu is one of the best academies in the continent, we are able to support it by just a list of names, so that when you start listing those names, people are able to say, okay, you know what you're talking about. Who are some of the players that have come out of your environment?
Yeah, okay, you're going to put me on the spot to list a lot of names, but I'll just give you a few highlights. So Menashe, who's the Zimbabwean boy, is doing really well in Copenhagen in Champions League. Antonio van Beek, who came all the way through our structures and then went to Stellenbosch and now is at SC Reed in Austria. Within, we've just had actually there's Lusika, Botswanan international player that is yeah. So we're looking to place him currently. He played in AFCON as a 18-year-old schoolboy. Somehow managed to start a game in AFCON. Is an amazing achievement for him. And then we've had quite a few players play and made the step into the PSL. So obviously Saviwe was one of those. One of his teammates throughout his development years was Jody Ashin, who also was at the Under-20 World Cup. Also within that squad was Fletcher, the Under-20 goalkeeper, and then Lazola, who we spoke about earlier. Jesse Don came through, obviously Luke, and there was Luke Fleurs, who's obviously tragically was killed a couple of years ago. So that was one that really was heart sore for us. Yeah, and then we've had there's a few players that have played a little bit in the PSL, and I think an NFD has had some years there, and so yeah, I think we're about 35 players that have been attached to PSL clubs at some point.
That is amazing. That is amazing, Dave. And I remember, I think it was during AFCON when you showed me that picture, Jody, Fletcher, Lazola, and Siviwe all in one team at some point at Ubuntu. And they all went to represent the country in the World Cup. That must have been something that is exciting and also an inspiration for the current group of players at Ubuntu.
It is, yeah. I think it's a huge encouragement to us all that what we do seems to be working. And yeah, and I think there is some role modeling there. It comes with caution for the new group. We've just been inducting the new group and saying that the danger is complacency and expectation that this will become your path, and obviously they've got to work so hard for it. But yeah, I mean that was a bit of a frightening squad. I think there was a further 3 players in that squad that also had national team call-ups as well. So I had the privilege of coaching them, so they were a bit of a machine if we ever put them together in a tournament. Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of players in your time there, and I'm sure this is going to be difficult for you if I were to ask the best player to ever come out of Ubuntu Academy.
Sure, that is a
difficult one, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some players that have come out that we've always known have been on a strong trajectory. Lazola was always well ahead of the curve. Jody was always doing unique Jody things that made him unique and special. Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to compare. I mean, Luke was the one that we often call the pioneer. He was the one that did things that before him no one had done at Ubuntu. So playing the Olympics, he was the first one to sign professional. He was playing NFD by age 17. So I think we'd always have a special spot for Luke. Jesse is one that is always a fascinating case study. I think he would openly say that there were kids more talented than him in the team, and even today he said I probably wouldn't have made it into Ubuntu, but yeah, pure grit and determination and yeah, just that desire to push through allowed him to push into a career. So yeah, I'm sorry I've not answered your question with one. I've given you a whole handful. I mean, and of course Saviwe. Yeah, I think that we we've seen that it's still potential with him. What he can do is really, the sky's the limit for him.
Talking about Sevilla, I think it was last night I realized that when you look back going to the COSAFA AFCON qualifiers, he was not part of the squad. When the team was going to AFCON, I remember he was in the preliminary squad. He actually played a game and he scored at UJ. I think it was against Botswana in one of those preparation games, but he didn't make the squad. Come 25-26 season, Coach Siema gives him an opportunity. He starts, I think in one of the games he scored a brace and he never looked back, and he got selected, deservedly for the under-20 World Cup, and he just grabbed the opportunity. What is it about him that, even when you don't go to COSAFA, you don't go to AFCON, but when that opportunity comes to go to the World Cup, he grabs it by both hands, and today as we speak, he's going to Europe.
Yeah, I mean, having worked with Sevilla in his younger years, there's a humility there. Like he's a good team player, but he's driven. Like he is that fight and determination. I think he manages to keep his focus on the right things. So he gets out on the field, and what you see is what you get. He wants to get forward and attack. He wants to create. He wants to score. He's clear on what he's good at. And he's effective. But yeah, there's a deep down drive there that is quite special.
And then there's Lusiga. I don't think someone has done what this young man has done to be playing in the ABC Motsepe League, which is the third tier in South African football, and be able to go and play the biggest, continental competition in Africa at such a young age, playing in ABC Motsepe League. What is it about him that, the Botswana technical team, they couldn't ignore him?
Yeah, he's fearless. I mean, he's not the biggest player, but he's full of confidence. He's full of belief. He's so positive. If you're to meet him off the field, he's just got the warmest smile. He's infectious. So you want him a part of your squad. You want him a part of your team. And to see in the Bay Hill, just like the way he could step up in big moments. He's just not scared. As an 18-year-old schoolboy playing ABC, it didn't faze him at all playing in these type of environments. And I think a lot of that comes from his secure in who he is. He's strong, like he's got a strong faith in God, and I think that really cements as like a part of like who he is. And I think that often having that stability off the field can really allow players to flourish.
There's that group, Dave, that you came to Gauteng with to play in the African Schools Football Championships. That group had the likes of Sabri Lospa, Simama, Ferguson, Neto Mafanya. That was quite a very good group of players. How was the experience, winning here in South Africa, going to represent the country at COSAFA?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I think it was in 2023. Taking that group to the nationals and winning as national schools champs, and then we had the privilege of representing South Africa in Zimbabwe, which was amazing honor that we were selected to do that. We ended up in a tournament with 9 other national teams, and we were a school, and we just snuck through in the end and won, beat Malawi in the final on penalties. It was actually Sabari either 2 or 3 incredible saves in that final. So yeah, I mean, what an experience for those boys. Yeah, to be singing the national anthem, to be playing and expressing themselves like they did. And yeah, we then from there we had the opportunity to go to Zanzibar and represent the Kasafa region again as a school, and that was in 2024. Again, not a bad place to go and visit. Great experience. I think it's fair to say we played against some real experience there. We won one of those games, but yeah, we did go out in the group stage that year.
And in terms of, experiences, learning and, eye-opening experiences, you go there with a very good team of under 15 players, but what you then experience is that it's not under 15 versus under 15. There's some elements that, we don't want to see in football. How was it like for the boys and you knowing that perhaps if it was strength for strength, if you're playing your age mates, what could have been possible?
Yeah, I mean, I reflect on it with a smile on my face now, but I assure you it wasn't a smile at the time. Yeah, I personally, I was fuming and angry about the scenario. Yeah, and I think that the checks and balances were not in place, and I think it's realistic to say that there still continues to be a challenge, specifically within that competition. Yeah, I think for the boys, there was mixed feelings. On the one hand was that we were on the boat when we were traveling from Tanzania to Zanzibar. When we realized who one of our opponents were, there was just disbelief of who we were going to be playing against. And then, but also, the boys were, they went out there and like we were up for the challenge, and so it felt like we were playing ABC Motsepe teams, and so they stood up incredibly well against some boys that were a lot bigger than them.
Yeah. And from that team, you look at Inganati's performance last year at the COSAFA AFCON qualifiers. He played like he's been playing international football for years. He was just a marvel to watch. Do you then think, even as difficult as it was, that experience, it has helped him, in adapting to the demands of international football?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that these type of experiences have got to shape you, and I think Inga's one example of someone who's not fearful, and he really stood up, and I made him captain for that tournament, and and he led brilliantly.
Dave, let us talk about the book, The Children, which I think, after this conversation and having read the book, one gets to understand how Ubuntu is, what you do at Ubuntu and what is in the book is, you're basically on the same page. What inspired the book and what is it about, and how important is it that for parents, coaches and players, they get to read this book?
Yeah, I mean, so the book, I mean, I wrote it by accident. I genuinely didn't go out to write a book. I just, during lockdown, when we all had plenty of time on our hands, I ended up making a presentation, and the presentation started at 4 pages and ended up at 18 pages and was getting really long. And then I realized, I think I've written a book here. So it really came out of my experiences of having been in the game, in the academy space since 2010, and just constantly, just personally facing with that question of what about all these players that I've worked with? What about all of these players that had that dream of playing professionally? What about the players who were playing in junior international teams and were looking set for pro football, or what about the players that did go to pro football? Where are they now? Are they few years later. And I think there was a discontentment that personally operating within the industry that as a football coach, you know, I'm part of the industry. I'm part of the people that are selling the dream of pro football. But for many, and if anything, majority, pro football doesn't work out. So what then? So really, yeah, the book is about this conversation where, you know, it's a small percentage of players that will make it through to pro football. You know, at Ubuntu, we're somewhere between 10 and 30%, depending on which age group. But it's, you know, it's not all of them are going to make it as pros. And, you know, you go around the top academies around the country, and, you know, typically it's under 1% will go on to have a sustained pro career. So that's the first, I think, the first aspect. And then the second one is, well, even if you do have a pro career, we look at the stats in South Africa and we see the length of careers, and it's typically 7 to 10 years if you do well, but, you know, many are shorter than that. And so you get to 32, 33, 34, and then what? So, you know, even if you've had a pro career, you know, it's unlikely there's going to be enough savings to take you all the way through to retirement. So really the book helps, whether it be players, coaches, parents, anyone involved in the game. Can I just wrestle a little bit with some of these ideas of, well, what are we preparing our young people for? And could we have a different perspective where we say, go after your professional dreams, go after being the best player that you can be, but also have another dream alongside it. It's not competing against football, but it's preparing for that day you stop pursuing football or stop playing professional football. So the book's called Dual Dream, and yeah, I wanted to sort of write something, and there's a publisher that took it to printing to really help sort of. I'm passionate about this being a conversation that we, especially as coaches, that we're talking about, we're aware of, and that we're speaking to our players. We're not being. It's not a blind spot that we're pretending doesn't exist, but we're realistic that this is what is happening. So this is, yeah, it continues to be a passion area, and it dovetails quite closely with our work at Ubuntu. So we've incorporated quite a bit of the principles within one of our programs there.
Dave, I know I've taken a lot of your time. But because this is a conversation that, you know, we've always wanted to have, and I thought if we can just package everything at once. But I really appreciate yourself availing yourself, and yeah, I hope the viewers will also appreciate that and also get to understand what is Ubuntu about. Yeah, so thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Tabisa, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for all that you do in South African football. I think it's important to really note the role that you play, and so thank you for being a positive person within that space.
Thank you very much, and hopefully I'll visit Ubuntu one day and get to see the academy for myself. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks, Vito.
Bye.
Bye.